this evening. My name is Marion Brown. I am the Dallas County Sheriff. It's a pleasure to have you here. I am your host this evening. If there's something that you need from us, please don't hesitate to let us know. I want to take a moment to introduce, I see a couple of elected officials here, and I'm going to introduce one, but I don't want anyone else to be offended because the others will be introduced at a different time because they're on the program. So Dr. Daniel, I know you're on the program also, yes? Yes. Okay, so let me just acknowledge our county commissioner for this area right here, Teresa Daniel, Dr. Daniel, thank you for being here. Also want to acknowledge our executive staff. I see many of them here tonight. If you would just stand up and be acknowledged. Thank you for coming and being in support of our legal team. Thank you. So the reason we are here tonight is because this is a very timely topic. Oftentimes we hear of domestic violence situations and we wonder what we could have done, or we say to ourselves, what went wrong? Is there anything that could have been done to prevent this? So just recently, as a matter of fact, Chief, I think you all had a situation here a week or so ago that was a matter of domestic violence. So this is very timely. It's very appropriate, very fitting that we have this discussion. We know that October is the month of observance, so it's always fitting and always proper, but I think it's good for us to stop every once in a while in October and acknowledge that this is an important topic. Glad to have you all in this setting this evening, and hopefully when you leave here that you will have information. I see a lot of law enforcement, and so I hope that we will experience some other folks who are not on the front lines, but some folks who can come in and gather information as to the who, what, when, where, and why about this topic called domestic violence. And we hope that when you leave here, you will be better informed, that you will be more in tune to how we can be a help to one another. So let's go ahead and get started so that we can stay on time. I'm going to ask if you would just for about 20 seconds, let's just have a moment of silence for in observance of those who have become victims of family violence and those who continue to fight the battle. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask Dr. Teresa Daniel if she will come forward and read a proclamation. This was read also in open court this morning, so it is on the record, it is official, and I'm going to ask her if she'll just take a moment and read the proclamation for us.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. And thank you everybody for coming out today. You know, working in government, there's a lot of things that we do. And oftentimes they're good things for the good of the residents of Dallas County. Well, there are also other things that we do that are serious topics. And this is one of those times which domestic violence is something that, no, you don't want it to be happening. And so you've got to figure out, okay, what can we be doing? And parts of it in this resolution, October 2025, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence is a covert and pervasive public health issue affecting individuals and families across all communities, regardless of age, gender, race, social economic status, or background. Domestic violence often leads to long-term consequences, placing it squarely within the scope of public health concerns. And whereas the National Observance of Domestic Violence Awareness Month began in October 1987, offering a chance to celebrate survivors, raise awareness, and support preventive efforts, as well as educate on what abuse is and what the hidden dangers are. And whereas a 2025 theme with survivors always reminds us that supporting survivors is not just a moment, but a long-term commitment. It is a call on local governments, nonprofits, faith communities, and neighbors to stand together, listen, and invest in real solutions that promote safety, healing, and justice for all who have been affected by domestic violence. And whereas purple is a visible symbol of solidarity during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, purple also inspires public reflection, survivor support, and community action to prevent violence and promote healing. And whereas, as of October 2025, the City of Dallas has reported 10,217 family violence crimes, including 5,102 intimate partner crimes and 10 intimate partner deaths. Victims are primarily female, that's about 71%, most often between 20 and 29 years of age. The largest racial and ethnic groups affected are Hispanics or Latino, at about 4,990, Black, 3,798, and white, 1,326. These numbers highlight the ongoing and urgent need for prevention, awareness, and support of services for victims of domestic violence in our community. And whereas the Dallas County Sheriff's Department, the Dallas County Sheriff's Department plays a vital role in this effort by responding to incidents, protecting survivors, and collaborating with community partners to promote safety and accountability throughout Dallas County. And whereas Dallas County has worked relentlessly with local groups such as shelters, crisis centers, legal aid providers, and community activists to offer life-saving resources, trauma-enforced treatment, and paths to recovery for people affected by domestic violence. Now therefore be it resolved that the Commissioners Court of Dallas County, Texas, hereby proclaims October of 2025 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Be it further resolved that Dallas County confirms its commitment to assisting survivors, holding abusers responsible, and building safe, healthy communities through coordinated response, education, and advocacy. The Dallas County Sheriff's Department invites all residents to join us on Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in the new Mesquite Government Building for an evening of reflection and unity. Together, we will honor survivors, remember those lost, and raise awareness about the impact of domestic violence in our community. It was done in open court this morning and signed by all 5 of the Commissioners Court for Dallas County. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so our next item on our agenda calls for Resource Spotlight, and we have a special guest with us here today. If you'll come on up, Ms. Beatrice Forte. If you'll come up and tell us a little bit about the victim intervention program that exists at Parkland, many of us are unaware of, so shed some light on that for us this evening.
Thank you, Sharon. Hi, so my name is Beatrice. I am the public health educator for our program within Parkland. As you know, Parkland is a wonderful hospital. We are here for the community. So one of the services that we offer is that free therapy. Because it's very important. When somebody goes through some traumatic event, sometimes they don't receive the help that could have been as a child or as an adult. So it doesn't matter when or where the person suffered either abuse or victims of a crime. We're here to help. So with the way we are funded, we are able to offer these services to the community for free. They don't get charged anything. We don't need insurance. We don't need that police report, because sometimes with regards to domestic violence and any other type of crime or abuse, it's hardly reported. So we believe the survivor. They say they have gone through something. We are going to believe them, and we are here for them. So what we offer is that free therapy, starting from the ages of 4, because we understand that also children have witnessed or have been victims also of this abuse or victims of crime. So we offer starting at the ages of 4 and up. And one of the things that also part of Parkland is that We're unique because we have 24/7 advocates within our own whole hospital. So if anybody that comes into the hospital in a crisis or in an emergency, or part of our screening questions about domestic violence or any type of abuse, if they at least answer yes to one of those screening questions, it's prompted to one of our advocates to go talk to the patient. And of course, patient has the right to decline services to talk to anybody, but at least there's somebody there to be able to speak with them if they feel comfortable enough to receive services with us, or just have information where maybe not down next day or week, they can come and speak with us. Because it's, again, understandable we cannot force somebody to receive services if they're not ready to process. So we are here for the community, and part of our education too, the prevention, which is I'm part of, is going out in the community and doing this education and prevention, talking to the youth. It's very important to speak with them as early as possible, just the signs of what is a healthy relationship, the abuse, especially now with the digital era, learning a little bit more of those pitfalls of digital abuse, because unfortunately many of our youth are prone to these instances where unfortunately a lot of them end in suicide because they trust somebody online and then they kind of get persuaded to share intimate photos, and that kind of leads into extortion and things of that nature. So we are here to help. So if you want more information, I can definitely speak with you. And if you're also interested in us coming as part of education into your communities as professionals, we can definitely create these talks to the community for anybody that is interested. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. That's good information to pass along. I don't know how many of you knew that there was this specific education source available to our citizens. So I think that before you leave tonight, make sure that you get information from her table there so that we can share this information with our citizens, right? Okay, next up, we're going to, did Dr. Miranda make it? Oh, there you are. We're going to hear a story from a survivor. Dr. Aaliyah Miranda is going to share with us her experience as a victim of domestic violence, but not only a victim, a survivor. Come forward. I'd like to have you. Grab my phone so they won't buzz on me.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dr. Aaliyah Miranda, and I want to start by thanking the Lord for putting in my heart the conviction that I deserve better, that I can dream big, that I'm much more than the place where I was born, more than my ethnicity, more than my gender, more than my past. Today, I am no longer a victim nor a survivor. I am an advocate. And I owe it to all those women who do not have a voice, all those women that are not given a chance to dream, all those women that have lost their lives due to domestic violence. I was born and raised in Mexico. I immigrated to Dallas when I was 16 years old. I began taking English as a second language classes to learn the language and be able to communicate. My first son was born when I was 17 and suffered from gastroschisis. Gastroschisis is a birth defect in which an opening of the abdominal wall allows the stomach and small and large intestines and extend outside the body. I married that right after high school, but the relationship quickly turned abusive, and I stayed in this abusive relationship for 8 years before finding the courage to reach out for help. I found help by using a phone number that my mom had given me. It was the phone number to the family place. That's where my life changed. I stayed at the family place emergency shelter in 2000. At that time, I had no money or job skills. My 2 children, ages 6 and 12 months at that time, stayed with me. I stayed at the emergency shelter for 30 days, then applied for the transitional housing program where I stayed for 3 more months. This is where my journey began of learning how to support my family. This gave me the time I needed to learn how to make a living for my 2 boys. A year later, my ex-husband sued me for custody of one of the boys, which the judge granted. This caused the separation of the brothers and forced me to give my son back to the abuser. I found myself destroyed, uneducated, homeless, hopeless, desperate, depressed, and unqualified to secure a job. I received counseling and support from the Family Place Outreach Center, which helped me acquire the necessary tools to get back on my feet. I decided to go back to school and fight for my children. With the support from the Family Place, there was no stopping for me. I took full advantage of every opportunity, and after taking many ESL classes, I was able to enroll in college-level classes. Working and studying at the same time brought a lot of sleepless nights. However, I was determined to accomplish my goal. Eventually, I received an associate's degree from Mountain View College, then transferred to the University of Texas in Arlington and obtained a bachelor's degree, and later on a master's of education in educational leadership. I received a principal certification in 2010 and completed a superintendent certification in 2016. And it was in 2019, and by the grace of God, that I graduated with a Doctor of Education and Educational Administration degree from Texas A&M Commerce. After much praying, I was able to reunite with my son after 8 years of the separation. I worked in the field of education for 18 years, and I served in the capacity of dual language teacher, assistant principal, and principal. I had the amazing opportunity to serve as a member of the Family Place Board of Directors for 7 years, which gave me the chance to give a voice to the voiceless. I currently serve as the Senior Director of Educational Services for the Family Place. The Family Place empowers survivors of family violence by providing safe housing, counseling, and the skills that create independence while building community engagement and advocating for social change to stop family violence. In this role, I provide leadership, supervision, and development for all educational services to ensure quality services and coordination of services to adult and child clients impacted by domestic violence. I provide supervision to our Child Development Center, our B Project, BABE Program, Faith and Liberty Place, Legal Advocate, Speakers Bureau, and Community Engagement. Thanks to the support I received from the Family Place, I was able to find the courage to be where I am today. I used to be shy, had low self-esteem, and didn't believe in myself. The Family Place showed me there are people who care without knowing you, and I will be forever grateful. I was able to get back on my feet. I promised myself never to be homeless again because of a man. I'm so grateful I didn't have to sleep on the streets. To those who are currently recovering from abusive relationship, I want to encourage them to keep moving, to not stop. We owe it to our children, but especially to ourselves. I currently feel blessed, loved, and empowered, and that is my hope for other women.
Amen.
Well, she put it in a nutshell, but if you think about it, that's quite a journey from where she started. And now we're saying, doctor? Yes. Congratulations to you. Thank you again for sharing your story with us this evening. Now we're up to the point where we're going to ask our panelists if they will come forward. Our moderator for our panel is none other than Deborah Nixon Bowles. She is the CEO of a woman called Moses. And if you've not heard about it, you'll learn more about it tonight. You've already heard about the Family Place. We know that we have Genesis in the house. We have Parkland in the house. And anybody from Mosaic? Anybody? No? Okay. Well, you're going to hear some great information this evening. So we're going to ask our moderator if she'll come, and ask our panelists if you'll come and be seated, and you'll be introduced by our moderator. Thank you, lady.
Now, I'll explain. Sure, Brian, thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Deborah Nixon Bowles, and I have the honor of serving as the founder and CEO of Women Called Moses, an organization committed to helping survivors of domestic violence find safety, healing, and justice. I also speak to you not just as an advocate, but as a survivor myself, which is why tonight's conversation is so important to me. I'd like to take a moment to thank our panelists for contributing to this conversation. We have Judge Shaquita Kelly, Dallas County Criminal Court, Judge number 11, one of two family violence special courts. ADA Teresa E. Austin. ADA Teresa E. Austin, Dallas County District Attorney's Office, assigned to Family Violence Division and the Chief of the Protective Order Unit at the George Allen Courthouse.
All right.
We have Chief Monica Eagle, Dallas Police Department, previous commander over Domestic Violence Unit at DPD. Jan Lane, CEO of Genesis Women's Shelter. Now wait a minute, y'all gonna have to do real good on this one here. Just celebrated 40 years of providing shelter and support to women and children. Can we give a hand clap and finish? And let's just again, let's see how God does a great job. Thank you. Thank you. She's wonderful, and the reason I say that because as a survivor and a CEO, it's not easy out here in these trenches, most definitely for such a time as this. So Jan, thank you for all the great work you and your team is doing. Well, listen, first of all, when they told me I was going to be a moderator and I'm a little Pentecostal, y'all give a Pentecostal person the mic and a pulpit, it's all over, right? But look, I'm excited to be a part of this as the moderator. So,
May I interrupt you? I want to introduce Chief Stephen Biggs, who is from the Mesquite Police Department. We asked him to be here also tonight, and so I think it's important that we acknowledge him as well.
most definitely. So, panel discussion. With survivors always, a united response to domestic violence. Let's begin by grounding ourselves in what really happens in our communities. The first one is gonna be Jan. Ready, Jan?
Yes, ma'am.
You've been doing this work for decades. What are some recent trends you're seeing in domestic violence cases that the public may not be aware of?
Well, I've certainly seen a lot of changes over 4 decades. It was when I came on at Genesis, it was certainly something we did not talk about out in public. It was a small agency and we were just kind of struggling along as best we could. But over the years, I've seen chiefs of police step up and say, we're going to have a specialized investigative unit. I've seen prosecutors come along and say, we're prosecuting these cases even if she recants. We're seeing county commissioners and city council people stepping up and saying, we want a safe city, understanding that our cities can't be safe if our homes are not safe. Oh, I'm sorry, do I need this? I got a little Pentecostal in me, too. For a Methodist preacher's daughter, that's not bad. So no, I've seen programs grow. Genesis, of course, for 4 decades we've been around, but also the Family Place, New Beginning in Garland, New Beginning, Hope Store and New Beginning, I couldn't figure that out. Mosaic here in Dallas as well. A Woman Called Moses, you talk about somebody in the trenches, taking women who none of the rest of us, quite honestly, can always make room for. So I applaud back at you, my friend. But I think I've seen over the decades us moving forward together, as opposed to pointing and saying, well, you just hate women and you guys, you just hate men and we're not going to help you. But we know we cannot leave this on the steps of the police department or the city hall or Genesis Women's Shelter. We all have to be working together to end violence against women and children in our community.
Great. Chief, I have a question for you. Chief Eagle, how do you feel when someone from your team come back and you feel like it affected them in some form or fashion? How do you deal with that?
So this actually happens a lot. I currently commanded our homicide unit, and there's a particular victim that till this day I think about her because the manner in which she lost her life was very, very violent. It happened about 5 years ago, and it was traumatic for me, but luckily we have what we call a wellness unit where we're able to talk to a counselor in private, we're able to talk about what just happened, and where they help us cope, they help us process, our feelings, our thoughts, and how we move forward, in a healthy, positive way. But I'm very thankful for that program because when I started this job in 1999, we did not have this program. And so through decades, as you said, there was a lot of help for officers. But what you can't forget about is the victims. And it's very rewarding for me to ensure that every victim is given the resources that they need, that I go above and beyond to help them, to let them know if you don't feel comfortable with the PD, call Jan Langbine at Genesis, call the family place, because without their partnership, it would be a lot more challenging.
Typically, where I see red flags is when I am reading the probable cause affidavit and I notice that there's a gun in the home. That's a red flag for me. If he's done it in public, if he assaulted her around people versus in the privacy of their home where no one else can see him, that's a red flag for me. Also, if he is dragging her into court to get the stay away order lifted, that's a red flag for me, because to me it shows that there's still this issue with controlling her that's going on. And another red flag for me is immigration issues. If a victim is not a legal citizen, that is something that's going to cause her to be afraid and to be more controlled by the offender to do whatever it takes to get the case thrown out. And so I take it really serious at that first beginning stage of the case where bond and stay away orders could make or break the case. I typically keep my stay away orders in place, even if she does come in and ask for it to be lifted, based on all those factors that I just listed, because they could result in her being harmed or even killed.
Okay, thank you. Teresa, when a domestic violence case reaches your office, what factors go into deciding how to proceed, and how does your team prioritize both justice and survivor safety?
So in my office, I'm in the Family Violence Division, and to kind of make you understand our unit a little bit more, we only handle intimate partner cases, meaning partners that either are married or have children. Our unit, just in that Family Violence Division, we have probably 8,500 cases just in that division. This year, we probably had 12 murder trials, and we have 50 waiting. So there, unfortunately, in Dallas County are a lot of family violence cases. So first of all, when the case comes, it comes to us from normally a police agency. I believe there's 52 agencies in Dallas County. When we receive the case, we have to first make a charging decision. Is it going to be a misdemeanor or a felony? And then as we're looking at cases, we're making recommendations. Was there, as Judge said, was there a weapon involved? Or did the crime occur in front of children? The first person in our office that a victim normally interacts with is a victim advocate. That victim advocate is going to safety plan, make sure that they provide the victim with resources, and then talk to them and help them understand the process. This is what kind of the process is, because it's not swift sometimes. We think it's going to be swift, but sometimes it can take a case up to a year or more to go to trial. So we want to make sure that the victim has someone to contact, that they're understanding the different stages. In addition to that, we're working with the police agency. Sometimes they're still investigating, they're gathering evidence, body cam, DNA, we're having hearings. So all of those things are being balanced. And we have to look at justice and for the victim. Again, when you think about these cases, think about intimate partner cases. And these cases are very difficult because a lot of times our victims don't just want the abuse to stop, but it's still their husband, their spouse, the father of their children. So they don't necessarily want to participate in sending that person to jail. So we're also making decisions on how we're going to handle cases. Can we prosecute the case from an evidentiary perspective if the victim, the survivor, doesn't want to participate? And doesn't want to participate is not something that we look at from a judgmental standpoint. We look at from, that's her right, and maybe she just can't do it. Sometimes we have cases that are just very traumatic. I had a case the other day where the offender basically just pulled her hair back and cut her throat with a box cutter 3 times. We were on Zoom. The judge could see the scars, and the judge was like, yeah, I don't need to hear too much. We can go ahead and grant a protective order. So those are all the things that we're balancing, because we don't want to re-traumatize the victim, but we want to make sure that justice is done and that this person doesn't reoffend with this victim or with someone else.
Quick question also. When we talk about protective orders, do you see more women still requesting protective order, or are they still so fearful that they don't want to get the protective order?
So in our office, we handle a lot of protective orders, but protective orders come in different phases. We handle protective orders even when there's not a pending criminal case, but there are a number of phases. We know that sometimes it's up to 7 times before a victim is comfortable leaving. So sometimes we may have a victim that comes into our office that gets a protective order. It's immediate. The violence has just happened, or it may be months later when they've had an opportunity to get to a safe place. During COVID, one of the things that we realized is that our victims were home with the abuser. So we had to find a different way to try to assist them, because before they could come into our office, when they couldn't come into our office, we kind of had to pivot a little bit. So now we have a system where they can email us, just different ways. People are still reaching out for protective orders. We also have, our criminal cases, they have bond conditions, and we have seen an increase, but making sure that we get the word out, that people know that the protective order process is there. A lot of people aren't aware that we do have a service. We have prosecutors in Dallas County that are available. I handle protective orders specifically in the family courts if they're going through a divorce or through some type of custody, because as you know, it's very difficult to be ordered to co-parent with an abuser. So that's something that the family judges really are involved in. There's some new litigation that has to be taken into consideration if there's been family violence, if there are custody matters going on.
Thank you. That was great. We know survivors often interact with several systems at once. But before those systems get involved, the community start asking questions, and not always helpful ones. Jan, this is the one that gets me as a survivor. One question survivors hear too often is, why doesn't she leave? Can you help us unpack that? What do people misunderstand about barriers and fear survivors face, and what should we really be asking instead?
Well, thank you, because that's the one that makes me want to set my hair on fire.
Yeah.
I hope I live long enough and doing this work long enough that I can see a societal paradigm shift that stops asking, why doesn't she just get out, and start asking, why does he do it? What kind of coward beats a woman? What kind of monster beats the mother of his children? That's the questions we ought to be asked. Those are the questions we ought to be asking, but every single day, jurors don't understand it. Why doesn't she just get out? And that's usually followed by, because boy, if that were ever me, I'd be out of there in a heartbeat. But would you really? We know the reasons. We know why she stays. We know why your mom didn't leave. We know why your daughter is still in that abusive relationship. She stays because she said she would. She got married in front of God and 200 people and said, this is forever. She stays because she loves who he used to be or what they used to have. She stays because he said, if you leave, you'll be sorry. And he has shown her all too well what that can mean. She stays because she thinks she has no place to go, not knowing about the family place or Genesis or New Beginning Center, Hope Store. She stays because she went to her priest or pastor. He said, go home and read Ephesians 5. Anybody here want to talk about that for a minute? Okay, thank you. I know you go to church because you're nodding your head. I say read on down the rest of the chapter. I've been at rehearsal dinners where people will stand up and say to the new bride, my prayer for you is that you will be a Proverbs 31 wife. And I'm like, read on down the rest of that chapter too. I don't know, that, you know what I'm talking about? That's the one that talks about, men go get a woman in the community, she's going to be a pillar in the community, have your children clean the house, so on and so forth. But that's not the whole story. And so often, even in Judaism, there's a phrase called shalom bayit, which means peace in the home. And I've heard Jewish women say, if he beats me and I tell, I've broken shalom bayit, she stays because she thinks it's her fault. I've never once heard a woman say, he beats me because he lacks conflict resolution skills. He beat her because dinner was late. He beat her because his shirt wasn't ironed just right, because he felt like she disrespected him, he thought she was looking at someone else. And so again, thinks it's her fault. Maybe she doesn't speak the language, maybe she's not documented to be here, on and on and on and on. But the number one reason is that leaving doesn't stop the violence. 75% of all women who are killed after they've left that relationship. And if you think about it, just because, if my husband's abusive, which he's not, I want to get that on the record. If my husband were abusive and I left, and I moved out, and I did everything you told me to do. I went to Genesis, I got independent housing. Do you think he's a nice guy now? It doesn't change his behavior. If he can't still find me, he's going to come after somebody else, and it's the same behavior. So leaving doesn't stop the violence. And again, in fact, it is the most dangerous time. So whether it's, I love him, I have no place to go, and it's not just one of these things, it's all of them wrapped up. I have no money, I have no job. He's cut up my credit cards and my driver's license. Do you know how long it takes to get a replacement? Dallas County ought to know that, right? It takes a long time to get your license replaced. Well, I can't go to a hotel tonight. I'm going to sleep in my car. Well, the car's in his name. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So I hope you all will join with me and stop asking that $1 question as to why didn't she just get out. And let's all continue to hold accountable the perpetrator. Deborah, when you were asking about what I've seen over the last 40 years, I failed to talk about how proud I am to partner with the Family Place and their efforts with regards to accountability. They have the largest batters intervention and prevention program holding accountable abusers. Most of them are court-ordered, is my understanding. But we see a reduction in recidivism when there has been accountability. Also, I want to applaud the Family Place, and I know I'm not the MC here tonight. I also want to applaud them for having a men's shelter for men who are battered. It's not just women. This is a gendered issue, and primarily it is women who are assaulted. But Family Places recognize that there are men who are assaulted by same-sex partners. It doesn't necessarily mean that's a woman being the perpetrator, but just thank you guys for what you do with regards to drawing a line in the sand.
That's awesome. Now, on the male perspective, can we get you to chime in? You want to pass the mic down?
The chief? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, good stuff.
So regarding,
Why did she say?
Yeah.
Why did she stay? Well, so basically to echo what she just, hello? Okay. You summed it up perfectly. I mean, those are the reasons. And, 27 years ago, when I was a rookie cop, that might have been my first thought is like, you know what, why don't you just leave? It is not that simple.
Right.
Growing up, my dad was never, I guess what you call physically abusive, but verbally, like when he came home late at night, like I was ready to eat and go to bed because I didn't want to hear it. So I kind of grew up a little bit in that environment. But my mom didn't leave because of me. Like she wasn't going to leave her child behind with him. So, to the point, you were talking about, we were kind of talking about how these things continue to escalate and they get worse and worse. The sheriff alluded to it a little bit. We had a homicide a little over a week ago in our city, domestic violence related, where this guy, he wound up shooting his female partner in front of his two very young children. So not only is that one life lost, but now you have two very young children that just witnessed a homicide directly in front of them that they will be affected forever. And I think that was our 4th domestic violence related homicide in Mesquite for this calendar year, 4 last year. So these things don't stop, they escalate. And it's extremely important that, we have forums like this to address these things and talk about it and to get it out there to get the tools out there for people to understand that there are options. So.
Thank you. We talked a little bit longer on that, and the reason why, as a CEO, I get that question asked all the time. Even family members that say, well, why don't she just leave? And sometimes it's just not that simple. Sometimes all the shelters are at capacity. If you had a perpetrator holding a gun, a weapon to your head day and night, fear, it's gonna get me. If I leave, take the kids. So there's numerous of reasons. I always tell everyone, if you have a family member, a loved one, even, in this field, we never imagine it's gonna hit our household. But when it does, you take your suit off. If it's your daughter, you take it all off. I mean, we do not understand a lot of times why she stayed. But one thing that I've learned is sometimes you just have to listen to a survivor. Just listen. No opinion, no advice. Go ahead.
I just want to add to that. I think the one thing that we're missing here is love. Love. I think all of us have stayed with someone too long that we loved, and we stayed because of love. It really can be that simple. It's just refusing to give up too soon in your mind.
Yeah.
So when you hear someone, I always say, well, why did you stay in your last relationship too long? That's what I say. Because we've all been in a relationship where we know we should have gone a long time ago. We saw those red flags, and it didn't have to be violent. It could have been just something else, but we stayed just a little bit too longer than what we should have. Same thing.
Good. No.
We want to see them change.
Hope for change, you left that out too, hope for change.
And just to add, I don't know, I think Family Place does it. There is a program that they have. It's called In Her Shoes. And it's a simulated program where you go through being in someone's shoes. And I did that. And so you go to a table and you get a card, and it may say something like, your husband abused you, and you leave, and you go with your 3 kids, and where are you going to go? Well, you can't go to your sister's house because her husband's a registered sex offender. So you go to your minister, you go here, and then you have to go back home. So we went to a number of different tables, but some of the people that started with us, based on their decisions, their table ended them up and they had an obituary. That's real life. That's what these victims go through. And so doing that made us realize that when they come to our office, when they encounter some of the officers, we don't know what they've been through to even get to. I mean, I've had people in my office with 3 or 4 kids on the hip, 1 in the stomach, and they're there trying to get the information that they can to us so they can get back home and not let the abuser know that they've been there trying to get a protective order. So when we think about that, we have to be non-judgmental.
Can I add one thing? It is Genesis that does it In Her Shoes. And Sydney, is it tomorrow or Thursday that we're actually hosting one of those trainings?
Tomorrow.
It is tomorrow?
I'll be there.
Thank you, thank you. No, it's really pretty powerful. And I know this is kind of veering, but I'm afraid you're going to take the mic away from me at some point. Last week at North Texas Crimes Commission, I had the opportunity to talk to police officers about the most deadly call to which you can respond, and that's domestic violence. And the first police officer that we know of that was killed in the state of Texas, his end of watch was February 7th, 1877. He was with the police department in Waco, Texas, walked up on a domestic violence and the guy shot him. Hundreds have been killed since. There's lots of training that we do at the Conference on Crimes Against Women and that is out there on how to be able to go home at the end of the day. We want you going home to your families, but how very dangerous these things are. And the more you know about domestic violence, the more you know about the power and control wheel or the cycle of violence or his past, the lethality assessment forms. If you know he's dangerous, if you know he has a history of this, if you know he has a firearm in the house, that he has strangled her, all of those things can help save your life. So I just wanted to plug that in there, that I recognize you all are the heroes going out when we are calling you thinking we're about to die. And you put your life on the line. He knows you're coming. So please be careful. Yeah.
That's good. That's why I love Jan, because she gonna tell it like it is. Like I said, she's giving us facts. She's been out here 40 years, working with her and collaborating at the task force. Elba Garcia. We've always talked about, what's going on in our community, because our numbers are increasing and we know all our shelters are just about at capacity. And the thing about it is the more we educate ourselves, not be ashamed about it, We need to talk about it, from sex trafficking, human trafficking, domestic violence. It all intertwines together. So I'm really enjoying it. So thank you, all the panelists here. This is fantastic.
And if I could say something real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
To her point, the last Mesquite police officer killed in 2021 was Richard Houston, responding to a domestic at Albertsons right down here on Beltline. Shows up on the scene, makes contact with a female, goes to make contact with a male, pretty much ambushed and killed immediately. So, you know, this was at, 2 o'clock on a Friday. So it happens, and it's, we all know in this room that it's one of the most dangerous things we can encounter.
All right, we're going to move forward. Judge Kelly, I have one more for you. What happens when I'm sorry, Jan, one more for you before we pass this. This is important. Sorry about that. What happens when someone calls Genesis for the first time? What service or responses tend to matter most in the first critical moments? When she called, what is that critical moment?
First thing I want her to know is we believe her and we don't judge her, and that there is help and there is hope and it's not her fault. Now from there we go into kind of a triage process to where, as you say, the shelter is full most always, but the shelter really isn't the only answer. It's not even often the right answer. It is an answer, and sometimes I think police or the public feel good about just saying, hey, why don't you just go on to a shelter? But it's rough living. There are very few spaces. She's thrown in with other people who have just experienced their trauma. So our biggest footprint is actually our non-residential services, saying counseling, information, referral, access to civil legal representation. They just don't need a place to sleep that night, okay? But wait, where was I going to what was your question?
One other quick.
So then we can actually, with that, either text or call 946-HELP, 214-946-HELP. We triage into what's best for her, basically. But believing her, not judging her, telling her it's not her fault, there's help and hope. And that would be the same thing that the Family Place would be doing as well on their hotline. In fact, we've got a program, a partnership with Family Place that they handle what we call a bed count. I don't know if that's the official name on it.
DV beds.
What is it?
DV beds.
DV beds. And we're all connected electronically, and we can look and say, well, Genesis is full, but rather than make her call 3 other places, we can do a soft handoff because we just saw that Family Place just had an opening. So that's a new thing as well. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Who are you going to ask next, the judge?
Chief, I go. DV cases often intersect with multiple agencies, from law enforcement to the courts to the service providers. Can you share how DPD is collaborating with other criminal justice partners and local law enforcement agencies to respond more effectively?
So, great question, because it's daily for DPD. We have thousands of cases with Dallas PD, and so this is really daily. So not only do we respond by taking the report and or making an arrest, but it's really what happens afterwards. It's the follow-up. So we have a dedicated caseworker, and she will reach out to all the victims, and she will provide and go over some of the resources that are provided by the Family Place, by Genesis, and we go over that at length with them. We, stated earlier, we provide safety plans for them if it's needed. And we also not only work with our advocates, but if there's a need to, place strict bond conditions on our offender, then we're going to do that. And that's where the DA's office comes into place. And what I found very rewarding is that it didn't matter what time of the day it was or what day of the week, someone is always there to take our phone call. Someone is always there to help guide us. So if we couldn't find shelter space with Genesis, we'd pick up the phone and call the Family Place. And sometimes we'd even reach out to other cities, to be able to assist us. If Mesquite called me today and said, hey, we need some assistance from Dallas PD, we are there. We are going to help our fellow coworkers and regardless of what agency you work at. But it is a collaborative effort, and it takes a lot of people working together to ensure the safety of this victim. Because for me, I don't want to lose a life. I want to be able to give this person the best resources that I can. And as stated earlier, a lot of times they're going to feel more comfortable talking to our advocates, talking to a counselor, even talking to other family members, because when they feel when they involve the police, they know that with that comes an arrest. And sometimes it's not what they're looking for. Sometimes they just want to get out of that situation because they have children, because they don't want to separate the family. But, you know, as long as we have that open communication with them, which we do, that's really the most important thing.
I have one quick question. What are some of the limitations officers face when trying to help in these situations, whether it's policy, lack of resources, or safety concerns?
I wouldn't say we have any limitations. What I would like to see increase is when we respond to the field or we have victims come to our office, when we're responding in the field and it's Friday night at 11 o'clock at night and we look at the injuries and we realize, you know, we have what we call a lethality assessment, and that helps me gauge the risk level that this victim is facing with their current abuser. So if they answer yes to the first three questions, which does he have a gun? Did he threaten you with that gun? And most importantly, do you think he's going to kill you? That automatically forces a phone call to the Genesis or Family Place. And so we try to immediately remove the victim and provide them shelter. You know, remove them from that situation to ensure their safety. But the numbers, they don't want to leave their home. And I think because it's fresh, I think because this incident just happened, because they love them, because they don't want to see anybody go to jail, is why they don't accept those resources at that very moment. But it doesn't mean that a couple days later, they accept that, that assistance. But, I would like to see that number increase a little bit where our victims are accepting the services as soon as the incident occurred.
All right, this is for the full panel. If someone here today wants help for a friend, family member, a neighbor, co-worker, a stranger, what do we need to do? What would you advise them to do? Just quickly, if somebody called you or you just see it, what would you do quickly?
So, 911, if you are at risk and you think your life is in jeopardy, you need to dial 911. We will respond as soon as we can. It's an emergency, it's a priority.
What else? Can somebody else chime in on that?
Well, the hotlines that we were talking about, whether it's Family Place or Genesis, the 214-946-HELP is one call, and I'm not asking you to fix it, I'm just asking you to connect that person with us.
Real quickly, if you saw a family member, friend, or neighbor, and you see bruises on her or the kids, how would you handle that? And they're real close to you. No, let's say it's a family member.
Yeah.
How would you handle that?
Well, I've done it over the years. I've done it in many different ways. There have been times that I just kind of round about it and say, well, I heard this panel last night, and did you know it's 1 out of every 3 women you pass? And, I kind of do it in third person. And then there's sometimes I'm like, tell me why it is you have that bruise. Why do you have that bruise on your face? Tell me what's going on. I'm scared for you. I got to tell you, though, it's not always received as I intended. I was in a Kroger in Houston not too long ago, and this woman had a huge dark spot right on her face, and I was checking my groceries out, and she said, I said, tell me why it is you have a black eye. And she goes, it's a birthmark, bitch. That's what she said to me. I'm like, okay, all right, yeah. And so what if it wasn't, right, is what I'm thinking. Now, I can't go back to that Kroger anymore. I don't shop in Houston that much anyway, so that's all right. But we have to ask. I think we have to ask.
I would do the same. You would do the same.
So I actually had a situation where my cousin was being abused, and but she did not want to talk about it. It's very obvious, and I didn't want her to feel judged. So I said, hey, you should put together a safety plan for the moment that you've decided you just don't like that relationship anymore. And she said, well, what's that?
We didn't talk about what happened to her. I didn't ask her any questions. I just said, take all of your essentials like your social security card, your driver's license, your birth certificate, maybe a credit card or some money, a key to your house, and just put it in a bag somewhere near the door. Hide it. So that in the event you feel like you're done with this relationship and you want to leave quickly, you can. And she did it. It didn't happen that next week. I think it was a couple months later. And she called me back and she said, I just want to thank you for not judging me. So I would say, if you have a friend, a family member, or someone that's not in the grocery store and you don't know, you don't even have to ask. Sometimes that's just going to cause walls to fly up. You can just assist by being helpful with resources.
And I'll just add to that is be comfortable being involved. I had a situation where I overheard a family member calling 911 and talking about what was happening, but what she didn't tell them, and I had to call in another room, is that the offender was there outside, sitting in his car, potentially with a gun. She didn't tell 911 that, so that's dangerous for the officers to come not knowing that he's there in front of the house in a car. So, sometimes you have to, she just, call the police, think she's making a report. No, that's dangerous. If you want to call them, we're going to call them and make sure that we give the information. And then the biggest thing is to be non-judgmental. We don't know, I've seen people all levels of education. Like you said, I've had a friend where I'm like, looks like her face is kind of swollen. Provide what you can.
And I want to say that it's kind of normal for women to get in each other's business. But men, it's uncomfortable for you all. And I'm going to ask that you be okay with being uncomfortable with holding each other accountable. Because way too many times have I heard conversations about guys knowing that their friend is a little too aggressive or a little too verbally aggressive with his significant other, and they don't say anything. And they go home and they talk to their wives or their other friends about it, but they never check their friend. There's something to be said about being comfortable with being uncomfortable and having those uncomfortable conversations, because you all need to hold your brothers accountable. We do it. It's easy for us really to say, girl, what happened to you? But guys don't as much. And so I'm going to encourage you to tell your fellow brothers, hey man, we got to start being a little bit more vocal.
And add to what Judge Kelly said, because those conversations that they're having are about your daughters and your nieces and your sisters, your mothers. So somebody needs to step up and hold them accountable.
And we need to start teaching healthy relationships at a very young age, especially to our young girls, because we want them to know what a healthy relationship should be like.
Great info. I tell you, February is Teen Dating Violence Month, so I always say tell your kids to get involved, even parents. I love the idea that everybody was transparent, because what we're saying tonight, I know me as a CEO, just being in the trenches and what I see every day working in the southern sector of Dallas, Texas, so many young girls being abused and boys, getting caught up in prostitution. I just got called on assignment about Houston. Now they doing it in the clubs. The teenager girls are swinging back at on the poles now, and their pimps are working it. So this stuff is real. I know me, I done jumped in many cars. I tell them in Pleasant Grove, they know me by name. They call me Miss Harriet, Mama Deborah, Mother Deborah. I got every name. I've been called every name, but this is what I do. This is what's my passion. As a survivor, it's not always easy, because even when I see women with 4 and 5 children don't know where they're going to go, where they're going to sleep. Young boys dropping out of high school just trying to help mom. We see this every day, in my vehicle. I'm calling people begging. We have a Safe Night program. We work with Family Place, Genesis. When they're at capacity, I try to put them in the hotels. I'm not the big mothership, but God has equipped me where I can at least put them in a hotel and work with Genesis Family Place and say, if I put him in a hotel for 3 or 4 nights, can y'all at least, when a bed come available, we transition her. So we all work hand in hand together. So moving forward, this is the good part. We're going to open the floor for a Q&A. How many questions do we get? 2.
We're doing very well on time, so let's see, we may have more.
Y'all got the best up here tonight. Let's go for it.
I would like to hear more, and you touched on it, Chief Igo, you started, but I think we need to talk more about our young people because, and maybe Jan, you can say something about that as well. We are seeing more and more of these instances of intimate partner violence with young people, and they think it's okay. It's not okay.
So I know the Family Place has a program, is it Just Be? Or Be Project, thank you. And I have a 15-year-old daughter, and so as you know very well, it's a very critical age. And, you know, I think, you know, I don't know what it's like to have divorced parents.
To have these conversations. But Judge, I got a little pause for you.
Is there anyone else? Have a question? Pretty good. That's it?
Well, let me ask the judge to talk a little bit about how it is that when women, mostly women, come in to your courtroom, how do you manage, that can be pretty traumatizing, how do you manage making the victim feel okay to be in that setting? Good question.
Well, one, the DA's office do a good job of that because they have a victims advocate lounge, a victims lounge where they can get snacks and relax until it's time for them to be called. Because I used to be a prosecutor, I realized one of the things about victims coming into the courtroom is the fear of having to see the offender. And mostly that is because the offender is staring them down. And so what I didn't intentionally try to do, but I've noticed that I keep eyes on the offender as soon as the victim is about to be brought to the witness stand to make sure that he's not, or she is not making any type of facial reactions or anything threatening with body gestures, because that happens and the jurors don't see it. And I've had several incidences where I have had to correct the offender right in front of everybody. I have never been afraid of correcting someone in my courtroom. If you're going to act up in my courtroom, then I'm going to act up with you in my courtroom. That's just how I feel. And so I've turned to the offender and said, you will not do that in my courtroom. And that empowers the victim to hear that, right? I also make sure that she knows before she gets on the stand, we want to hear you, so I don't want you to have to keep repeating yourself. So move that microphone closer to you. It's not attached to the desk. The mic moves and you can move it however you need to. I'm going to get you some tissue. Are you ready to proceed? So I really just look at her in her eyes and have a conversation with her and let her know it's okay in here. You're going to be fine in here to speak. And then the rest of the time, I'm looking at her, but I'm more so watching him to make sure him and his family are in the back. Because that, when I tried child abuse cases, is what they would do, sit there and make gestures or make expressions and move around and look at her, and that is so intimidating. She's already afraid to be there in the first place. And so, you know, of course, my bailiff is sitting right there to help with the security, but a lot of times they don't even see the bailiff. All they see is the offender. And so I want to make sure I bring their attention to me, talk to them before they get on that seat, and then remind the offender that I'm watching him at the same time.
May I ask a question?
As you know, it's against state and federal law for someone who is subject to a protective order or has been convicted of a crime to have a firearm or borrow one and use one. Our problem is that they're not getting taken up, and this isn't my question yet, but I chair the Dallas County Intimate Partner Fatality Review Committee, and out of all the homicides every year that we review, out of the 53 counties, 52? In Dallas County, 63%, the number one choice of weapon is a firearm. It's against the law for them to have it, yet they still have them, and that's the majority of how these homicides are being committed. What's the problem? I mean, we know, number one, if you ask for them, they're liars to begin with. We know they're criminals to begin with, and I doubt they're just going to say, "You're right, Judge, I have made a big mistake here. I've got 10 under my bed." What can we do in the state of Texas to get these laws enforced? That's tough.
That is a tough one because, you know, you and I had this conversation years ago, and I think the community is under the misconception that judges can just go inside someone's house and remove guns. It's not that easy, right? So we have to have some information that is gives probable cause for us to issue some type of warrant, and that is very rare because, again, we're going back to a situation where the victim is afraid. She's barely talking to the prosecutors. So she's definitely not coming to court to tell me about a gun. Right. I started trying to be creative by giving an incentive to turn in your gun. And actually it was working, this was pre-COVID. And it was working where I was rewarding the offender with waiving court costs, waiving community service to get that gun from him. And I was able to start getting some guns off the streets that way. But we're relying on them to give it to us. And it's almost like a dead-end situation. I don't know, I've been racking my brain for a while, I'm sure as you have too, in ways in which we could find these guns that we know that they have, but no one's telling us about them.
Well, and I want to applaud you because you're talking about it. I was up in Collin County where one of the judges up there was letting us use her courtroom, and I said, how do you handle firearm removal? And she said, well, the good voters of Collin County don't want me talking about guns. And I said, well, I know, but you know, it's against the law and the whole thing. I'm going to repeat this one more time for you. The good voters of Collin County. And I was like, well, I wish I voted here.
Right. So one thing I do in my court, and I actually have encouraged my colleagues to do the same thing, because there's only 2 domestic violence courts in Dallas County, so not everyone and not all the judges are as familiar with domestic violence as I am. But on every plea, on every bond hearing, I ask the offender if they have a firearm. And typically they say no. But I then admonish them that you are not allowed to have firearms, handguns, or ammunition of any sort. And it can result in you being rearrested. And I mean possession in the sense that you can't even be in the car with someone who has it, because that's normally what they say. It's not mine, it's somebody else, right? You will be deemed in possession of it as well. So I do a heavy admonishment on it. I haven't had any real issues in my court with guns, but I still don't think that's enough, to be honest.
You're going to find a way to get in possession of that weapon, whether it's a family member, a friend.
And with protective orders, that's part of the process. We ask them if they have a firearm, we take testimony. There's an order that the judge can order them to surrender, but I mean, like Judge said, we're asking them to surrender. If they've already been arrested, a lot of times they do have them, but I have personally gotten a call from ATF saying there's someone here trying to buy a firearm, and we ran them on TCIC and CIC, which is a nationwide system that we put the protective order in, and there's an active protective order. So at that point, that was a federal offense.
Judge Kelly, quick question. I get a lot of family members ask this question. When the perpetrator actually murdered the victim, he has a rap sheet, and they let him out on these low bonds. You know, you come back, like I think it was in Arlington. The guy had a rap sheet. He gets out on bond. He goes and murders his wife. And everybody is like, oh, what is that about?
Well, that's changing, because legislators are on us heavily with these new bond laws.
They have enacted a lot of new bond laws. I can't even tell you them all right now because they are pretty convoluted, and I understand why they are doing it. It is making all of our jobs a lot harder. I'm sure it's weighing on the jails as well. But I understand the importance of it for situations like what you just said, because sometimes I had a judge sit for me when I was out of town, and the defendant had come to my court on a bond hearing like 2 days before. I denied the bond because he had 2 pending cases in my court, 2 pending felony, these are all assault cases, 2 pending assault cases, and I picked up a new violation of protective order case. So you have 4 assault cases, okay? I say no, I'm not giving you a bond. Well, I had a judge that sat in for me for 1 day, and he gave him a bond. And so when I come back, of course my court reporter, who is a snitch, was like, She's like, ooh, Judge, I didn't even like what happened while you was gone. And so I had him rearrested. But it's because that judge who sat for me really just does not understand the legality of family violence. They feel like, oh, well, she wants to go back over there, then, that's not any of my business. Some people actually feel that way. And so that's why we're glad we have domestic violence courts in Dallas, with people who actually know what the cycle of violence and the power of will control and all of that stuff. But yeah, we have a lot that had just come down on the judges, so you're going to see a different, it's so hard to get a bond on a sole family violence case now. It's a lot of work, and we're all trying to just digest all of it, but it's causing us to pay more attention to how we're handling bonds, because there are sanctions for the judges if they mess it up. Yes. So I don't think you're going to be seeing too much like that anymore.
Hi, I'm Andrea Vega with Univision, Channel 23. I have a question for the judge. Do you think Proposition 3 is going to be enough to close the gap when we're talking about bonds?
Tell me more about Proposition 3.
This proposition is going to raise the bond for very serious criminals. And it's going to ease in the bond right now.
Well, I think when you have higher bonds, you have offenders who are less likely to post those bonds, which of course means it's less likely they're going to reoffend and cause more trouble in society. I do that myself in my court. If you've been in my court once on a bond and you post it and you pick up another offense, then first of all, that original bond, you don't have it anymore. It's a no bond hold. And then the second bond gets higher. So, and that for me is to protect all of you for that person who obviously cannot adhere to a court order in the first case. So when you have a higher bond on it, I have no problem with, bonds going up for violent offenders. And I think whatever it takes to save a life, whatever it takes to make sure that we all feel secure in our homes, officers feel secure when they're going out on these calls, then we need to make it happen. I do think it will start to close the gap, yes.
One thing as we're closing, I would love to see the day that I see so many individuals watch a victim literally get beat down. And it has to be something done about that. I follow the Sean Combs P. Diddy case. How can you have a bodyguard that stood there and watched this woman be beat down? You have a staff. All the beating she took, friends, family was around. And the only thing that saved her was the tape, the video from the hotel. Bystanders, to me, just as guilty. I think that gets under my skin more than anything. How could you be a human being, watch, especially another man or a woman, see a woman being beaten? Something has to be done about that. And you see it over and over. The first thing I witnessed, our survivors say, well, his sister saw him do that to me. His mom protects him. She been knowing he'd been beating on me. The mother, no, my son don't do that. He's a good kid. Well, you just never know who's going through. So I really appreciate this. I don't know if y'all enjoyed it. Let's give everyone a hand clap. I enjoyed it. Cheryl Brown, let me tell you, she is the most loving. Wherever I go, I see her in the community. And I want to thank you for all the love and support you have given me in the community. I mean, she be from the north, the south, the east, the west, at church, at restaurants, but she shows nothing but love. Jan, all the panelists, you guys are fantastic. Thank you. Thank everyone for coming out tonight.
All right, let's have a round of applause again, a big round of applause for our panelists tonight.